Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I am Tiffany and I am the blogger and reseller behind Blazers and Blue Jeans and Blazers and Blue Jeans Thrifts. In today's video, I wanted to share my experience buying a pallet. So one of my goals for 2021 was to buy a clothing pallet, and I had been looking to figure out where I wanted to buy the pallet from. I wanted to do my research, definitely with different kinds of pallets that you could buy. And I found a company that I liked and I thought they had a good selection. So I decided to go with them. I am not going to disclose the source or anything. I think before you buy a pallet, because they are a large investment, thousands of dollars, you should definitely do your research to see what different pallets they offer, if they have any sort of reviews or anything. And my experience specifically with this company was not great. So I'm just not going to mention the pallet or the liquidation company at all, but just definitely do your research. So the pallet I got was a manifested pallet. You can buy unmanifested or manifested. Manifested means that you know what's in the pallet. Unmanifested means you have no idea. You probably will know where it's coming from in terms of like the retail store. Maybe like, oh, this was on the sales floor, or these are, returns, but you might not know what's in the pallet at all. So I got a manifested pallet. So I actually got a spreadsheet that had all of the items that were in the pallet, and the retail value, the sizes, colors, brand. And my pallet was actually from Macy's and Bloomingdale's, and I felt like it had a good range of things. I mean, there were definitely things in there I did not want, but the pallet was, the pallet had 800 things in it, so that's a lot, obviously. So I can't, not all 800 things are going to be awesome. And I really, for my first pallet, I definitely wanted to get something manifested. I wanted to know what I was getting and not just, hey, you know what, I'm going to throw thousands of dollars in this and maybe I'll have a good return. I wanted to have an idea of how much the retail value was on the different items and the brands and the what condition they were in and everything. So like I said, I got an 800-pound pallet, and it came from Macy's and Bloomingdale's, and it cost me a little over $6,000 to buy it. With shipping, it was probably closer to like $6,300. And before I decided I wanted to get a pallet, I tried to figure out, okay, well, how much would I be comfortable spending? How much money do I have saved to invest in a pallet? Obviously I'm not going to sell all 800 items immediately when I get it. I'm going to sell them over time. So if I only had $5,000 in my bank account, I wouldn't buy a pallet, because then all my money would be tied up in it. So I wanted to save enough money and then have a budget in place. I really didn't want to go over $6,000, including the shipping, but I will totally say that the source that I got the pallet from uses a bidding system, and someone would outbid me and I would be like, oh, I really want this. So I think my emotions definitely got involved, but it wasn't like I spent an extra several thousands of dollars. It was just, an extra $200 or $300, which in the grand scheme of things wasn't that much. And also, this was not the first pallet I bid on. There were probably 3 other pallets that I had bid on where I had lost. And so I felt really discouraged, to be honest. I was kind of annoyed because I, really wanted to get a pallet, and I had money set aside for it, and I was excited, and it just was not going my way. So I purchased the pallet March 22nd. It got delivered on April 18th, which is expected that it would take that long. I don't even know how much it weighed, but there were 800 items in it, so it was huge. And it is now mid-June, and I still have not listed a bunch of things from it. So for those of you that don't know, I also have a full-time job, so reselling is something that I do on the side. I have to dedicate 8 hours a day. I have a very limited amount of time that I can dedicate to going through the pallet and listing everything on top of other reselling things, my full-time job. I also try to work out 5 days a week, have somewhat of a social life. So it can definitely be challenging. But yeah, now mid-June, still haven't listed everything. I actually just finished photographing everything, so everything has been photographed. I would say 60% of it is listed on Poshmark. The other 40% I finished photographing today, so I'm gonna get that listed. Hopefully in the next couple of weeks, everything will be up there. But I want to show you guys what it looked like when it got delivered. I actually took the day off to process it because I knew it would take a while. So here is a video of the pallet arriving, and I want to show you guys what it looked like to go through the pallet and really see how big it was, because I mean, I've never purchased a pallet before, so I knew it was big, but I didn't really know how big it was. Okay, so you noticed in the video that it broke during its trip over here. Apparently, according to the FedEx guy who delivered it, the box was not the correct box to use for the amount of items that were in there, and the top was not sealed at like 100%, so you could like stick your hand in there if you wanted to and take something out. And so the pallet box broke while it was being transported, and obviously things spilled out of it. And FedEx did their best job to shrink wrap the rest of it and then throw everything back in just so it could make its way over to me. But I'm assuming because it broke while it was being transported to me, I went through all the items and I was actually missing over 50 things. So like I said, assume that came from when the pallet broke, but again, it wasn't sealed all the way on the top. You could easily just reach your hand in there and take something out. So what's to stop anyone while it's being transported from taking something out of it? I have no idea. And to be honest, I was not expecting it to be perfect anyways. I knew things were going to be damaged, things would have security tags. I knew things would probably be missing, maybe a couple things that were, you know, like the wrong size or the wrong color, not labeled correctly. I will say with security tags, there was probably like maybe 10 things with security tags, so that wasn't that big of a deal. Missing items, there were 50 things that were missing from it. Damaged, I think off the top of my head, between 15 and like 20 things that were damaged. And when I say damaged, it was either, you know, something that got ripped and it is not repairable. So like I just cut a loss on that. Or it got dirty or has like makeup on it. So I'm gonna have to try and get that out. Thankfully, the pallet that I bought had a bunch of items that were still in the manufacturer packaging, which is awesome because it's, you know, never hit the sales floor. It's still in the original packaging, so I know it's not damaged. It's the correct size and everything. And there were a lot of duplicates, so it's not like I have to list 800 individual listings. I can do one listing for 20 of the same item, which is really helpful and not as time consuming. There were quite a few things that I would say were either the wrong color or wrong size from the manifest, like a good amount. There were, just off the top of my head, there were some like jeans that were the wrong color. Like all of them were the wrong color, and I don't know how that even happened, but it said that they were this like black wash, and they were a like dark navy wash, so I don't really know how that happened, but there was quite a bit of that. But I will say, I mean, other than the items that were missing, it was, you know, I was pretty happy with what I got. I knew what I was getting into because I had the manifest, and then I feel like majority of the damages weren't terrible, but like I said, there were a couple that were ripped or stained that I can't sell them. So when I realized that I was missing 50 items, I reached out to the company just to let them know, like, hey, I'm missing a bunch of items, and I'm not sure if it's because it got broken when it was getting transported over here, but I'm missing a bunch of items and I'm not sure what to do. And thankfully, I took the day off to go through the pallet. And the only reason I knew that things were missing was because there were maybe like 3 high-ticket items that I could not find at all. And then there was this one coat that I was supposed to have 3 of them. I didn't have any of them. And I was like, okay, this is weird. And again, I've never bought a pallet, so I'm not sure like what is normal or like what should be expected. So I didn't know if like, okay, well maybe like that's normal. This is like part of that 5% that could be missing or like mislabeled or whatever. So I go through and I went through and counted every single thing that was on that manifest to see exactly how many items I was missing and what I was missing exactly. But I took off of work that first day. It got delivered to go through it, and then thankfully I had 2 more days off so I could go through and actually and manually see which items were missing and mark them on the spreadsheet, because that was incredibly time consuming for me to do. So I ended up missing again like 50-ish items. And I emailed the company asking, okay, so what do I need to do? And she said I needed to submit an Excel spreadsheet that had all of the items that I was missing. So I went ahead and submitted that, and I waited probably like 2 weeks to even get a response about like what the retailer said. And finally I heard back, and they said that the amount I would be refunded was $71. And I was missing, again, like 50-ish items. And then that doesn't even include the damaged items. So when the mediator told me that, I was kind of like, okay, that's not enough. That I don't know where they're getting like this random $71 number from, but that's not okay. And a different mediator stepped in and said, okay, I'm gonna reach out to the retailer and see if they can give you an additional refund because of this. Let me get back to you. So it took another several weeks for them to get back to me, only to say that, okay, the retailer is not going to give you any additional refund. We're gonna close the case. And I wish you guys could have seen the response that I said to them, because I was furious. One of the items alone retailed for like $600 that was missing. Majority of the missing items, I would say, retailed for like $80 plus. And it was just so frustrating because the box, like I said, it ripped while it was being transported because they didn't use the correct box or packaging, which is not my fault, yet I am not going to be refunded for items that are missing because of their mistake. Like, that did not make any sense to me. So they had said, oh, well, you know, the $71 is because there's a 5% variance, which we're not going to cover. It will be above the 5%. Which, if I'm being totally honest, I get that there's, you know, things that might be mislabeled or damaged, you know, whatever, that's part of buying a pallet, I get that. But with missing items, if there's a significant number of missing items, it's kind of like, okay, so you're encouraging people to potentially take things out of a pallet while they're putting it together because it's okay if at most 5% is missing. So if I take 12 things out of it, it'll be okay because it's part of that 5%. So maybe they didn't even put all items in there. I have no idea, but the 5% variance kind of like irritates me because of that, but whatever. So the mediator got my email and said, I'm really sorry about this. What can we do to make it right? So they ended up giving me an additional, off the top of my head, like $400 something to cover the missing items. Another thing that I want to note is they did not include shipping costs in that 5% variance. So the shipping costs were hundreds of dollars, like over $500 to ship it to me. And I get it, it's something big, but at the same time, I built that into my cost per item and my overall cost, yet I'm not gonna recoup that, whatever. So I ended up getting money back from the liquidation company in reference to the items that I was missing. It took months for that to happen. It also took me being a not nice person to get that to happen, which if you follow me on Instagram, you probably saw that I posted some stories about how, if Nordstrom placed an order with Free People and their items were damaged or missing, Nordstrom would say to Free People, okay, well, you need to send us those items or we're not going to pay it, or you're going to eat the cost because these arrived to us damaged or they were missing from our order. But because we are small resellers and we're not these like big companies with these big lawyers behind us, I feel like they A, don't take us seriously, and then B, they try to take advantage of us because they think in their mind, well, what are these people really going to do? Are they going to take us to small claims court over $200? It's going to cost more to do that than to just, accept it is what it is. And that's what's frustrating to me because, I have thousands of dollars tied into this, and it's not like I just have another $6,000 laying around and I can like spend that on another pallet like this. It's, you obviously need to save that money up, and then your money's tied into it for a while. So it's just really frustrating that that's the attitude that they have. And I'm glad I was able to get something back, but trust me, if the liquidation company was like, well, we're not going to do anything about it, my ass would have figured out, okay, well, do I need to get a lawyer? Am I taking you to small claims court? Because at this point, I don't care if I don't get anything back. It's just, out of principle, honestly. Or the story is, I'm just happy that got resolved and figured out, even though it was months later. So that will bring my cost of goods down a tiny, tiny bit, but because I was missing, 50-ish items, and then there were items that were damaged, will it really, I think my cost of goods will probably stay the same anyways. So I wanted to answer some of the questions that you guys had about my pallet. Some people asked them on my Instagram. My first question is, where did you get your pallet from? So like I said earlier, I'm not gonna disclose where I purchased my pallet from. There are a ton of liquidation companies that you can find, but like I said, I definitely recommend doing your research to find a liquidation company that has good reviews and has the inventory that you're looking for. Some companies focus on, retailers like Target inventory. Some of them have brands like higher end brands like from Revolve or even Marcus. So depending on what your business model is will depend on what kind of pallet you want. So another question I got was, what is your expected return on investment? And that's a really hard question to answer because I don't know how much some of these items resell for. My business model is to work smarter, not harder, and my average sales price is between like $45 to $60 per month, and some of these items only retailed for $60. So I obviously am not going to get anywhere near my average sales price with that. So the way that I looked at it is, if I made $5 on each item, I would be making $4,000 on the pallet. So I would almost be doubling my money. I expect to sell and make more than $4,000 off of it, but that was just kind of my mindset, like, okay, well, $4,000 is a good amount, and I think that's a good return on investment, so I'm just gonna go with it. Another question was, how do you plan on selling these items? So, funny story. Okay, so some of these lower end items, you know, maybe they don't retail for very much. I'm just gonna try and offload them in person because I would make more money doing that than taking the time to list everything on Poshmark. So I decided to do this like little pop-up shop where I had everything on hangers, and it was all sorted by category and then by size. And I wanted to sell majority of like the lower end stuff that way, and then sell the higher end items I would sell better on Poshmark. So I did that, and oh my gosh, that was terrible. So I'm gonna show you guys a video of what it looked like. Thankfully, my mom has a space that's kind of detached from our house, but it's like an enclosed space. So I had room to like put everything in there and sort everything, but it was quite the experience. So when you walk in, here's all the skirts and dresses. And then I have a mirror, and this is all the stuff that's packaged still. And then this is a pricing sheet. I have bralettes and socks. And then there's some bodysuits here, and then pants and shorts. And then there's large tops, extra large tops and plus size on the bottom, some mirrors. And then here are a bunch of pants, and they're by size for the most part. And then some coats, maxi dresses, and jumpsuits, and then tops. Extra small, small, medium. So I sold some stuff during there, but definitely nowhere near how much I wanted to, which meant that I would have to list all of this stuff. I didn't want to do mystery boxes, and the reason is because my personal experience with mystery boxes isn't, I don't want to say it's bad, but it's not that great. I mean, it's a mystery box, you really don't know what you're getting. And depending on how much you're charging for the item, you might only make like $5, and that's, like I said, not really my business model. I try to stick to an average sales price that's between $45 to $60 a month. And so by listing all of these items, it would drive my listing price down. So I have started to list it on Poshmark. It's just taking time because it's so many items. But I will definitely say that it will drive my average sales price down. And so far, like I said, I only have, I would say 60% of it listed. I've sold 39 items, and I've sold them at $1,100 so far. So my third question that I got is, how are you storing these items? So thankfully, I have enough space in the garage where I can have these items in there. There's a lot of items, obviously. So the system that I use just regularly is the bin system. So I put everything in a Ziploc. The Ziploc is labeled. It goes into a bin, and then the bin is labeled with a letter, and then I enter it into my spreadsheet. I do have a free spreadsheet that you guys can download. I will put the link in the description. It's the actual spreadsheet that I use for my inventory. So like I said, it's something that I use. So if you are new to reselling or you're trying to figure out a system, I think this is a great starting point for that. But I pretty much just put it in bins, and then some stuff I put on Z-bars. I have a couple of clothing racks, and they're the Z-bar clothing racks. So I have some of it hung up, and then I would say a majority of it just in bins labeled that way so I can easily find the items. What is your process to process everything? So what I did was I had everything sorted by category and then by size, and I decided to do it by chunks. So one weekend I would focus only on jeans and pants. And then another weekend I would focus on extra small tops. Another weekend I would focus on dresses. So that way it was bite-sized chunks rather than doing everything at once and feeling very overwhelmed. So I think that was really helpful doing it that way, just because it was manageable. And what I would do is I would photograph a bunch of listings on Saturday. I would draft a bunch of listings on Sunday and then post them throughout the week, and then just repeat that process for all of the different categories that I had. So it's taken me a long time to process it. Just to break down the pallet and actually get everything out, that took me probably like 3 or 4 hours. And I was expecting a bunch of it to be on hangers, so that's why I had these Z-bars. And then a bunch of it ended up still being in the manufacturer packaging, which is great because it wasn't damaged and it was never on the sales floor. But then I was like, oh gosh, where am I going to put all this now? Because I wasn't expecting this. So I had to go to Walmart and buy a tarp to get everything out of the box. And then the stuff that was on hangers, I hung on the Z-bars, and then I had extra bins, so I would sort it that way. But definitely a several day process to break down a pallet and sort everything, and that doesn't even include photographing and then listing everything. So it was quite the experience. So my last question is, would you buy another one? That's a hard question. Because I do this part-time, buying a pallet is something that's very time-consuming, exhausting. You have a lot of money tied into it. Because I can't list and sell these items as fast as maybe someone who does this full-time. So I really don't know. I think I would definitely never buy a pallet with 800 items again, because that's, I think, too much for me at this point. But would I buy a pallet with maybe like 200 to 300 items? I think that seems more manageable, but it would definitely depend on the brands. I definitely want to focus on higher end items. They require a higher investment, and sometimes those items will be sitting longer because they are more expensive. So it's not like you have a bunch of people, running to buy a $200 dress, but there's a ton of people running to buy a $20 top. So your money's going to be tied up longer. But I think, I still am checking that source, the liquidation company, to see what pallets they have and if there's any that are interesting to me or, that I think would be beneficial. But at this point, I really don't know if I would buy another pallet. It would just depend on what was in the pallet, how much it cost, and how many items it was. But definitely not an 800 piece pallet again. No, absolutely not. So I hope you guys found this video helpful. If you are either thinking about buying a pallet, or if you are just interested in learning more about that experience and what it looks like. If you guys have any questions, I definitely encourage you to ask them in the comments, and I will do my best to answer them. But like I said, I'm not going to reveal the source for my pallet, so if you are going to ask that question, I still will not answer it. So if you're not already following me on Instagram, I recommend you to follow my reselling Instagram, which is blazers and blue jeans _thrifts. And then if you want to follow my blog Instagram, it is just blazers and blue jeans. My reselling Instagram focuses obviously on reselling and thrift hauls that I do, and different thrift stores that I visit, and thrifting tips, reselling tips. My blog really focuses on creativity and inspiration, different health related things that I've done or diets that I've tried, as well as career advice or maybe like money management. So depending on what you're into, you could follow both or just follow one. And I'm going to include the inventory spreadsheet that you can download for free off of my blog in the comments below, so definitely check it out. If there's other things that you guys want to see that are about reselling, definitely let me know in the comments. This is Gatsby, my dog, who I love very much. So if there are any videos that you guys want to see in the future, it could be about pallets, reselling tips, thrift hauls, let me know in the comments so I can create more videos with content that you guys like. Bye guys.